Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. My name is Tomer Teller and I'm the Group Program Manager for Microsoft Security Exposure Management. That's a new Microsoft solution that we recently launched at Microsoft Secure. And today I'm here to talk to you a little bit about what it is and what's the value for you and your organization. So, as you know, our team reality, the security team reality is pretty complex, right? They now need to handle a lot of different attack surfaces. They need to worry about securing data. They need to worry about securing their devices and identity and their low-code, no-code application and IoT, and now securing AI as well. And eventually their attack surface increased dramatically. When you're thinking about it, the technology that they have are interconnected, but the security tools that's supposed to protect those attack surfaces are disconnected. And the result of that is a fragmented visibility. When we did a survey to our customers, we found out that there are between 70 to 90 different unique security tools, commercial and homebrewed, which means that they now need to deal with 90 different dashboards, 90 different query language. They're completely fragmented. And now, obviously, they don't have enough resources to manage that complexity across all of these dashboards. And all of these tools generate huge amount of security data. They're drowned in information, and they don't know exactly what is hot and what is not. And eventually, their team's spending a lot of cycles collecting the data from all of these attack surfaces, from all of these different tools, pulling it together just to understand what do I need to start with first. And eventually, more become less. Now they're becoming much more reactive because now they need to respond to different insights or alerts that coming from all of these tools instead of actually reducing exposure. Now, when you're thinking about it, how did the industry actually tackle that? And the answer for that was vulnerability management. We all know vulnerability management exists for the last 20 plus years. And it really all started with, we had the traditional attack surface, right? Endpoints and servers. All we had to do back in the days, let's scan it, let's discover it, let's enumerate all the different vulnerabilities, prioritize by the ones with the highest rating, and let's fix. Fast forward, few years later, now we have the modern attack surface, right? Now we need to deal with mobiles and identities and application and websites. And now we have more than just vulnerabilities, right? We have weaknesses, we have misconfigurations, we have excessive privileges. So now we need some more context to understand which one do we need to start with first. And we need to validate because naturally there's more things to do than people that can actually do that. Fast forward to this situation today with the expanding attack surface, we need to deal with certificate and SaaS and cloud security and data security and supply chain security. It's a nightmare. And when you're thinking about it, if our customer is not going to change their mindset, the process of how they're kind of approaching all of these findings, they will just drown in a sea of finding. And this is where exposure management and the new continuous threat exposure management mindset come into play, where we need to enrich and we need to connect business insights into the assessment results. And we need to be faster, proactive on how we mobilize the different findings into the different teams. Now, to try to emphasize what I just said and why we need an exposure management, imagine that you would like to protect this house. You will think like a defender, and you will install all the different security measures. You will install a lock, you'll install a camera, a fence, and an alarm. But even with the best security measure in place, new type of exposures will emerge over time and will put your house in a security risk. It could be a lost key, it could be an open window, it could be someone tailgating you if you open the window. And in order to ensure this house won't get breached, you will need to take an attacker perspective to discover all the different exposures with the highest breach likelihood and fix them faster than the attacker. Now, imagine that you need to do that, and not just for one house, but for cities. And each house has its own type of need in terms of protection. Each house needs its own security measure, and each house has its own security exposure. If you don't have a great view and inventory of all of these houses and types, and if you don't have a great view of all of the security measures and their current state. And if you don't have a great view across all of these vectors and exposures, you will just drown in a sea of finding. And this is exactly where exposure management comes into play, and the need for you to understand everything, see the big picture, understand where am I exposed, and focus on managing that. And this is exactly why we released Microsoft Security Exposure Management. And when you're thinking about over the past few years, security technologies had massive changes in threat management side with XDR. And it was driven by the need to improve the operational efficiency. And as a technology, XDR is intended to unify data sources and analytics for threat detection and response. Now, with the move to XDR, the industry recognized the need for data integration and consolidation. And the same thing never happened in the security hygiene and security posture management side. And this is exactly why we're introducing a unified exposure management, or what we like to call extended security posture management. And for that, a few weeks ago, as I mentioned, we released a new product into the market called Microsoft Security Exposure Management to help our customers in their journey to adopt a proactive and a continuous exposure management mindset. And the idea behind it is pretty simple. We want to help our customer discover their entire attack surface, but it's not enough just to get a list, inventories of all of these problems. We really want them to understand, what does it mean? Why am I exposed? We want them to come to a place to get an answer to all of their questions, and we want to provide them the tools to reduce that risk with confidence. Now, under the hood, the way Microsoft Exposure Management works is we're connecting to your entire security stack, Microsoft and non-Microsoft. You can see on the left a set of security categories that we're looking into, but there's many more to that. We're connecting to all of these tools, pulling all the relevant posture information, which means asset information, operational information, state, security finding, health information, and we're pulling everything into a smart, what we call an exposure graph. Essentially, we're doing an entity resolution, an entity enrichment, meaning that we're taking all the data from all of these different data sources and cleaning them, normalizing them, aggregating them, deduplicating them, right? Two sources might see the same asset with a different name, and we need to kind of a smart logic to understand, it's the same asset with a different name, with a different prefix, and join all of this information to a single view to provide you with a single place and a single source of truth for your assets and your exposure. But we don't just stop there. We don't just bring all this data and all the assets into a single place. We're also connecting them in a relationship on the graph, allowing us to build interconnected chains between all of these silo tools. And this is essentially what's bringing that interconnected security tools into a connected graph, allowing us to connect signals from endpoints to identities, to cloud, to SaaS application, to data stores, and so on. And on top of that connected graph, we productize a set of capabilities. First of all, an automated and continuous attack surface management capability to really help you discover all the assets, get unified inventories, and allows you with tools to explore it and really understand, what do I need to deal with? The second capability that we launch is an extended attack path analysis. And if you're familiar with the concept of attack path analysis, it's taking the attacker perspective, chaining a set of findings to understand how an attacker will chain different exposures to reach a certain outcome. We're taking that with exposure management to the next step by connecting between cloud and on-prem to SaaS and data stores. And we'll see a demo of that soon. And finally, we understand that in order for you to understand, make sense of all of these findings, we really need to help you to optimize and communicate your exposure and posture in a way that everyone can understand. Your stakeholders, your C-level, your practitioner, your security admins, your auditors, and so on. A place where you can come, ask a question, and get a fast answer so you can go and mobilize your team to actually reduce the exposure. So before we jump into a demos, I'll just quickly go over some of the capabilities that we launched. First of all, around attack surface management, we productize a set of third-party data connectors that you will see in a gallery. We're pulling the data, as I mentioned, seamlessly for all Microsoft solution and the selected third-party solution into our unified and exposure graph in order to build those unified asset inventories. You will see device inventory, identity inventory, application inventory, and we're planning many, many more. We're helping you understand that not all assets were born equal. So we productize a new innovative capability that automatically classified critical assets that are deemed critical from an attacker perspective. And of course, we're providing you with a visualization tool to explore the interconnectivity between those assets. And we'll jump into demos really soon. The second piece that we released, as I mentioned, was the attack path analysis. This allows us to move from a traditional silo approach to a way that prioritizes weaknesses from an attacker perspective by chaining all the different findings that we pull from all the different sources into a holistic story that tells you how you might get breached and how an attacker might leverage those in order to compromise your critical assets. This really allows you to boost a set of use cases, starting from validating your risk, penetration testing, threat modeling, incident response. There are many, many different use cases for leveraging attack path analysis with combination of the map component. And finally, the unified exposure insights really helps you understand your posture and where you need to reduce your exposure and strategically optimize your security and help you focus your teams on the things that matter. We will show you the concept of security initiatives. These are themed risk views that focus on key initiatives that security teams all around the world needs to progress on, along with a set of unified recommendations and the ability to effectively mobilize these findings. I hope you'll find the demos interesting. Let's jump into that. Okay, so we are now in the Microsoft Security Exposure Management overview page. This is a new section that we recently added into SEC, or the Security and Compliance Center, within security.microsoft.com. You will see all of these great new addition, and I will start and focus on the overview page. This is where you get in a glance all of your security assets. You'll be able to see all the different key initiatives that are critical, that are crucial to the progress of your security teams. We're harnessing you, empowering you with a set of automated security metrics, a new map component that we'll dive into soon that will allow you to better understand the interconnectivity of your assets, and a new component, a security event component that really emphasize and try to kind of elevate all of the critical drifts or new events that are important for you to get noticed in a single view. Now, let's start with exploring the attack surface. And as you know, everything starts with knowing what you have. So we'll head down into to our device inventory section. This is where you will be able to see all your devices that coming from all of the different data sources, meaning that if you connected your Defender for Cloud or Defender for Endpoint, your CMDB, all of that information will flow into our exposure graph, will be deduplicate and will be presented here in a unified manner. Here you can see the different, all of the different assets with their different types, whether it's a computer, a network device, an IoT device, or an external device, everything will be here. But before we dive into the different asset contexts, I want to start with one of kind of the innovation that we pushed into the product, starting with identifying your critical assets. So we'll head down here to the classify critical assets section. In this view, you will be able to identify and define what is critical for you and your organization. To get you started, our security research team have productized a set of predefined classification that automatically detects critical assets deemed critical from an attacker perspective. For example, automatically detecting domain controller or ADFS servers, admins and power users, or even servers with confidential data. In this example, we can see that we detected 5 domain controllers. We can see exactly who they are. And most importantly, once they're being detected, they're automatically being classified, their criticality is being classified, and you can, of course, control that, whether it's high, very high, medium, or low. You can, of course, turn off this specific control or this specific classification if you believe this is not a critical asset for you. Now, naturally, we can keep on adding more and more classifiers, but you know your business better than we do. This is why we provided the ability to create your own classification. So you can create your own rule and what is critical for you, and then build your own query of your classification criteria. For example, I can say that all the devices that contains or start with a specific sequence, let's say AB underscore, are critical. And I can just go on, add more and more filter. And finally, once I approve that rule, all the assets that are going to match against that criteria will be tagged with that specific criticality level. All that context will traverse and will be ingested into the graph and will exploded across all the different experiences within the M365 experiences. This will allow you not only to view that specific context, but also use it in terms of prioritization, in terms of different decision-making processes. And we're working with pretty much every teams across the Microsoft portfolio to leverage that criticality inside their experiences. If you go back to the device inventory, we can actually see all of these devices with the criticality level. So let's sort and see, for example, we have an SQL server here that was tagged with a very high criticality. We can click on that and view all the context that was collected from all the different data sources. We can see the sources that detected it. We can see the operation system. We can see more information about the OS and vulnerabilities. But if you want to learn more about what is this asset, who does it connect to, who can connect into it, we're going to leverage the new map component that we recently introduced. The map component allows you to dive into the interconnection between the different assets. In this case, we can see that the SQL has a certain set of vulnerabilities and a lot of security finding and security recommendations. And we can see that it's connected to a lot of different assets across the environment. In this case, for example, we can see that there's a certain resource group that contains that specific assets. If we'll expand that, we'll be able to explore it even further and see many, many different network interfaces, IP addresses, virtual machine, and of course, user accounts, some of which might be critical or VIP assets that are at risk and might put that specific asset at risk. So this is a great tool to do threat modeling, incident response, building a blast radius of what can happen if a certain asset or a certain intruder will be able to compromise that asset. It's really a great tool to understand your identity and access management. Oh, I didn't know that this user can access these specific assets. Let's learn about this user. Let's learn about the permission. Let's see in which group this user is part of. And this is the tool for you to go and explore. But naturally, not everyone has the time or expertise to do this type of diving. And for that, we also introduced the automated attack path analysis that I mentioned earlier. This new component takes attack path analysis to the next step. And by that, since all the data on the graph is coming from all of these sources, whether they're on-prem or cloud or SaaS or data, our automated attack path analysis algorithm try to exploit kind of the graph relationship in order to find all the possible places an attacker can move in order to compromise critical assets. And as a result of that, you'll suddenly see attack path that's spanning from on-prem to cloud to SaaS into the data stores. And you're pretty much not limited by a specific domain if the data exists, if the permission and the exposure exist, and there's a valid move between the different assets, our algorithm will automatically detect it and flag it. So what you can see over here, this is in this specific tenant, we can see many, many different attack paths that were detected. In this case, we can see, for example, there's an internet exposed accessible storage that allows that lateral movement. We can see that we can see the connectivity, we can see the relation, and we can see the end result. Let's try to find another item. In this case, we can see that there is a specific AWS instance that have excessive internet exposure that allows lateral movement to another database. We can go back into the map component, as I showed you earlier, to go and explore it even further. And of course, keep on expanding and trying to understand what is the exposure of that specific assets and connect the dots and trying to understand, is that something that I need to fix right now? And the beautiful thing about it is the more data sources that you add, the more data that is ingested to the graph, the smarter that we become, the more context that we can add, and the more attack path and extended and comprehensive attack path that we can generate. And naturally, as I mentioned, in order to build this inventory, you need to pull the data from all the different sources. So Microsoft solutions are automatically and seamlessly being pulled and ingested into the security graph. In order to pull data from non-Microsoft solution, we're introducing the data connector inventory. Right now, ServiceNow, Qualys, and Rapid7, but there's many new set of connectors that are lining up, and we're planning to productize and release in the next couple of releases. So here in the data connector catalog, you can simply connect into your favorite security connector. It could be a Qualys connector. Just add the information about your API, your username, and your password, hit on connect. In a matter of seconds, we're pulling all the relevant data from Qualys, enriching our exposure graph and all the different experiences that I will show you and you saw around attack path analysis, around map visualization will light up with that specific context. In case you need a specific new connector, you just hit request new connector. Our security teams is open up and really wants to add new connectors based on your needs, and we're looking up to you to provide that valuable insights. And that's it for me. And I'll let Ron take it from here to show you our new unified exposure insights. Ron, take it away.
Thanks, Tomer. Hi, my name is Ron, and I'm going to walk you through the Unified Exposure Insights module within Microsoft Security Exposure Management. Before we dive in, let's start with this overview page that we saw before. We can see here a set of different metrics, different data points, different signals that we have aggregated, and they surface top of mind different metrics that are relevant for your attack surface. Those are areas that you might be interested in to better understand what you need to actually do in your environment, where the exposure sits, and where you should focus at. We can see here different aggregated metrics about the assets that we cover, the attack surface at the top. And then we can see a set of key initiatives. Those initiatives are security programs that you usually manage already in your organization. With this model, we help you to improve the performance of those programs, to identify real exposure, and to focus on things that can actually improve your posture over time. We'll dive into those initiatives in a few more minutes. Another thing that we can see here are those top metrics. Those top metrics basically highlight exposure, real exposure that we have identified in your environment. Things that you might consider to look at and maybe decide to mobilize it within your team. Another thing that we can see here is the recent security events. The recent security events monitors all of those data points that I mentioned here, and they highlight meaningful events that you might want to explore and learn more about. What happens if there is a sudden drop in my ransomware protection score like we have here? We'll cover it in a few more minutes. Now, let's start with diving into the security initiative concept. If I go to Exposure Insights, I can go to the initiatives page. This initiative page will show you all the current supported security initiatives in the product. As I said, security initiatives are actually security programs that you manage today in the organization. We took each security program and we've created a platform that helps you to measure your performance and to identify areas that you might want to consider to improve. We can see here different type of initiatives. We can see here threat-based initiatives. We can see security domains initiatives. We can see also baselines that you can measure yourself against. Let's go and dive into the ransomware protection initiative. I always want to know, how am I doing with ransomware protection? In the ransomware protection initiative, we have collected a set of security metrics that help you identify areas that can contribute to your overall posture when you would like to protect yourself against ransomware. I can see here, for example, that I have a problem with the storage account without network access or virtual machines without backup enabled. If I dive into this metric, I can see how many virtual machines have backup disabled right now. And also, I can list them. As Tomer mentioned before, there is also aspect of criticality. So if I would like to prioritize which resources I should fix first, I can filter the list based on the criticality levels. Now, each metric also have actual security recommendations that are attached to. Those security recommendations explain actually what you need to do to go and improve those specific metrics. In this case, this is obviously a security recommendation that is coming from Microsoft Defender for Cloud and has all the remediation steps required to go and enable backup on those virtual machines. And we can also see that this specific recommendation will contribute to other programs as well. In this case, this recommendation, if you will improve it, you will improve also your critical asset protection initiative. Basically, those views support the CTEM model as Tomer described before. Every program like this is a scope, right? Because we would like to start with scoping the problem. The problem that I would like to solve here is ransomware protection across my entire environment. So all those metrics cover different type of exposure within the organization. It covers cloud resources, devices, identities, applications, all of those aggregated into this view that our research teams create content on and update over time. So each view has those security metrics, as we mentioned before, and also security recommendations that will help you to focus and improve your overall ransomware protection score if you will implement those recommendations. As you remember, in our overview page, we saw that there was a drift, right? There's 6%, a drift of 6% in the ransomware score. One of the things that we help you to do is to identify those drifts. Here I can find it. It happened on March 26th. And I can see actually what happened. Which metric contributed to this drift and the drop in the score. We will, very soon you will see actual assets that contributed to this drift. It means assets that have new exposure. We can see here that before the change, we had 0 machines with high severity vulnerabilities, and now we have 14, which is a significant drop and significant exposure that we have found out in the environment. And this is something that I might want to explore. Sometimes that the reasons for those changes might be not only value changes, but sometimes there are system changes, system logic changes. Those are things that you might want to look at and decide if you would like to take an action on. So there are other types of initiative that I would like to show you. For example, Endpoint Security Initiative. Endpoint Security Initiative is a domain initiative that covers all the aspects of actual endpoint security. It helps you to identify how protected your endpoints are by leveraging all the signals that are coming, in this case, from Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, combined with CMDB, third-party tools, etc., etc. You would like to know how covered your endpoints are. So if I dive into that initiative, we'll see different metrics that are covered, for example, critical devices with high exposure level, number of Windows servers that are not covered by security agents, critical devices that are exposed to the internet. Those metrics surface the exposure around your endpoints. Each of those metrics will have the relevant recommendations that will guide you how you should reduce exposure and improve your overall posture in your endpoint security program. And this is another example for an initiative. Exactly like you saw the ransomware initiative, we have those domain initiatives in the endpoint security, identity security, and in the future we'll add even more. Until now, we saw how managing security programs that are built using security metrics, security recommendations. Let's go and see the security metrics catalog. In the metrics catalog, which you see here, we can see here the full list of all the metrics that we currently support in the platform. Do you have in mind some metric that we don't support today? You can easily suggest us a new metric through this form, and we will immediately get it. For us, if the data available in the exposure graph, as Tomer mentioned before, it's really easy just to add metrics into this platform. Same goes with recommendations and initiatives. If you think that there is a security initiative, there is a security program that the organization is currently running, you can suggest us a new initiative and we can consider it to adding it to the catalog itself. As you notice, Microsoft Secure Score is part of exposure management. Microsoft Secure Score is the known baseline for improving your overall posture. Now we moved Microsoft Secure Score to be part of Microsoft Exposure Management, but gradually Secure Score will converge into exposure management. Microsoft Secure Score is a benchmark score, is a baseline score. It's exactly like CIS, like NIST CSF, like other benchmarks that are available in the market today. Very soon, you will have Microsoft Secure Score covered as an initiative within exposure management with the wide capability set of Microsoft Security Exposure Management, wide context, up to entity level, to better understand how you identify exposure, prioritize it, and remediate it at scale. And this was Unified Exposure Insights module. I hope you enjoyed it. Tomer, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Ron. A lot of great demos, a lot of great value for our customers. Let's move on. So Microsoft Security Exposure Management is part of our unified security operation platform strategy. And we've been hard at work at building the foundation for this new approach. We're taking this a step further with a comprehensive set of capabilities to help you manage your security posture. And single matters because you cannot protect what you can't see. And the large-scale data advantage is what Microsoft Security brings to the table across our rich security portfolio and empower you to protect yourself against these attacks faster than attackers. Let's wrap up. Your exposure is more than just your posture. We need to understand that our attack surface grew dramatically, and the world is more than just vulnerabilities. We now need to handle secrets, misconfiguration, over-permission identities, and much more. We need a way to manage our exposure. But in order to do that, we must adopt an attacker viewpoint and understand and think like attackers and not in to-do lists. And finally, Microsoft Security Exposure Management provides you with all the tools that you saw today: attack path analysis, map visualization, data consolidation, to give you the tools and insight to accelerate your security exposure management, your exposure management program, and proactively reduce risk faster than attackers. Now we're back to the AMA to answer all of your questions. Thank you so much for your time today. Hi everyone, welcome to the live AMA. My name is Tomer Teller, and I'm here with Ron Chekhanovsky and Gidad Mittelman from the Microsoft Security Exposure Management team, and we're here to answer all your questions. Just a quick note that you can submit questions by visiting AKAMS/accelerate/exposure management. We're looking forward to answer all of your questions. And with that, let's start with a couple of questions that we got from the tech community. So right now, there's appear to be only a couple of preview connectors. I've requested a couple. Is there a roadmap somewhere where we can see the plan being worked on? Gilad, is that something you can take?
Yes, certainly. So while I can't get into specifics, I can say that we're committed to continuously expand our coverage. Our connector roadmap prioritizes integrations across a broad spectrum of domains and workloads, across cloud, on-prem, identities, apps, and beyond, to ensure that our solution will allow you to leverage the power of our product seamlessly with the tools that you already use to help you better streamline the exposure management program in your organization. As I think was mentioned in the question itself, to shape this roadmap and ensure that we're building the connectors that are most valuable to you, we have a connector request form in the portal. So I encourage everyone to visit the data connectors page in the portal and submit the request to help us better focus on tools that will generate the highest value. And as we make headway with the new connectors, we will reach out to customers who requested them to make sure that we work closely with you to help us nail the specific value that we can generate within our product by using the tools that you requested.
That's great. Thank you, Gilad. I think it's really key for us to help you manage your entire security stack in a single place. So we're looking forward to get insights from you around the type of connector that you want. We're committed to make sure that we pull all the relevant data to really help you build an effective exposure management program. Our next question from Youssef in the tech community comes around how do I prioritize in the recommendation of exposure management, right? We get all of these recommendations from all of these different tools for my critical assets, like production servers before endpoint devices. Gilad?
So a lot of the capabilities that we're building now are building blocks that are in fact intended to help you prioritize what to focus on. So you can look at that from two different directions. When you're looking to understand what risk or what exposure to focus on first in your organization, you need to look at the likelihood of what an attacker could potentially exploit, but you also need to try and understand what the potential impact of such a breach might create. We have two levels of capabilities, or two different types of capabilities for that. We have the attack path management areas in the portal that help you understand the actual attacker view of what vulnerabilities an attacker can exploit and where that attacker can potentially reach within the organization. We have an attack path management area in the portal that provides you this in a pre-cooked or built-in way. But we also have the exposure graph currently exposed in advanced hunting, the portal, for those of you who are familiar with advanced hunting. So you can also leverage that capability in order to use the KQL queries and understand what is currently exposed and which assets can be reached through that exposure. In parallel, we also have the critical asset classifications capabilities that enable you to use our predefined or built-in classifications to automatically identify critical assets in your organization. And we also provide you the ability to create your own custom rules that enable you to define how you classify in your organization critical assets. We take these two capabilities, we combine them into exposing both in advanced hunting, in the attack path management area in the portal that Tomer demoed earlier, and also in the attack surface map, the visualization part of the graph, to understand the exposed assets, the assets that are of high business value to your organization, and the connection between them, how such assets can be reached through attack paths that are currently exposing you to attackers.
Yeah, thanks, Gilad. I think it's at the heart of exposure management is our ability to differentiate the hot from the not, and the tools that you described and we demoed earlier really help customers prioritize in the context that we pull from the different connectors, whether it's Microsoft or not. Will over time will help more and more capabilities to do better prioritization and differentiate. And I think it leads us to the next question, Ron. Perhaps you can take that around. What about risk exposure to switch and network infrastructure, right? That's a big component of our environment.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So switch and network infrastructure, basically, those are another type of assets, that another like expansion of your attack surface, right? So as part of the platform, we aim to get all the signals that will complete the entire picture of exposure for all type of assets. We can leverage signals that are coming from Microsoft Defender Vulnerability Management to get some information about network device exposure. We can leverage signals that are coming from Microsoft Defender for IoT that can get like full visibility for your IoT and critical infrastructure. And we can also integrate with third-party products that own information, that already baked information about those type of assets. We aim to get full visibility into your entire attack surface, to get view on all the assets, calculate their exposure based on all the other signals, and provide you aggregated information on top of our platform.
Thanks, Ron. And kind of the next kind of question that we receive is a very popular question that we receive from a lot of customers since we launched a public preview a few weeks ago. And is Microsoft Security Exposure Management a separate SKU, or is it part of a larger security bundle? Now, as you'll know, during public, we will launch and we will announce the different business model, pricing, and bundling as we go GA. But keep in mind that eventually the mindset over here is around we want to help you and provide you with a single place where you can consolidate your entire stack. Similarly to our XDR Consolidated Threat Protection, we want to do that for posture. All the tools that we demonstrated earlier already part of public preview. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll announce packaging and pricing and capabilities as we launch GA in the near future. So the next question is coming from our MVP, Matthew. So is there going to be an auto-remediation or prioritization recommendation for asset with low to no impact to production while increasing the overall security posture? Gilad, would you like to take that?
Sure. So the short question is that eventually this is where we're heading, right? We would like to take our solution towards a state where we're not only providing visibility and helping you prioritize what to focus on, but we also help you take, the extra mile, the last mile, and help you remediate or mitigate issues that are potentially deemed to be of low business productivity. But this is part of our roadmap. Currently, this is not part of our offering, but we're definitely heading towards that place as part of our solution.
Yeah, eventually an exposure management solution. We are on a mission to help you reduce exposure. And with the more attack surfaces, the more exposure that come from the different security tools, you'll drown with security exposure. The industry is heading toward more autonomous, more automation, and we're looking into that direction as well, providing you more insight to focus and fix faster with confidence. The next one is another question that's coming from X, from Twitter, around how does SecureScore fit into this? Ron, perhaps you can help us with this.
Sure. So what is Microsoft SecureScore basically? Microsoft SecureScore is a product that customers really love, which has two components. One is a score, and the second one is a baseline, some kind of baseline that you measure yourself against the score. And all of those are packaged in a user interface within the security portal. Microsoft SecureScore is an exposure management utility, right? You would like to understand how am I doing against this baseline that is called Microsoft SecureScore. So we consider Microsoft SecureScore as part of exposure management, and you can see it that Microsoft SecureScore moved to be under exposure management within the platform. I can say that Microsoft SecureScore is part of exposure management and eventually will completely consolidate into Microsoft Exposure Management, just with additional set of capabilities. Benchmarking, customization, exclusions, all of those things that exist today in a certain level in Microsoft SecureScore will grow into Microsoft Security Exposure Management to help you manage different programs, such as I would like to be compliant with Microsoft SecureScore, but also I would like to understand how is my maturity while I'm trying to protect myself against ransomware or business email compromise. So all of those are different security objectives that your organization have, and you would like to track it over time. There is large commonality between those. So Microsoft SecureScore is part of Microsoft Security Exposure Management. And eventually, in terms of the user interface, it will consolidate and you will have a similar experience for both.
That's really great. And I really think that, when we started Microsoft SecureScore a few years ago, a lot of customers use that as a benchmark to understand how they're doing. But one of the learning that we had over the years, it's too comprehensive. It collects a lot of data from devices and identity and cloud. And part of the idea behind the initiative that we showed earlier is that we're kind of separating it into different themes to allow you to really focus on not just what I need to do, but why I need to do it. How do I justify it? How do I justify this recommendation on top of this critical asset, which I think is really crucial when you want to scope your work in an exposure management program. Here's an interesting comment that we got from Peter. So it's not a question, but more of a comment. So a very useful metric, if it doesn't exist yet, would be something that allows you to see which software is going end of life, end of service, and then stating from which year. Which I think it's a super cool, crucial metric. And Peter, thank you for that. And we're looking forward to hear back from you on the metric that interesting you. As you heard Ron mention earlier, there's a button that allows you to ask for metrics, and we keep hearing from customers that they would love to build their own metrics and build a community around that. We'll all hear about that, and we're looking forward to seeing the type of metrics that you want, so we can build these capabilities in the future. The next question was, will EDR be based on signature-based detection? This is more of a question for the EDR team, but I can say that EDR eventually is yet another source into Microsoft Security Exposure Management, as opposed to a SIEM solution that pulls activity. Exposure management pulls state and asset metadata to really help you understand kind of the attack surface. Another question that came from the community was, will security compliance support third-party benchmark and framework? Ron, perhaps you want to take that?
So, yes, eventually, all those security baselines are different security objectives that organizations would like to cover. I'm not getting into those details right now, but we absolutely acknowledge the need to be compliant with various frameworks, with various compliance methods. Again, through the initiative catalog, you can ask for different initiatives for different security programs that you would like us to cover, and we are reviewing that on a weekly basis to see how we can help customers to improve their security maturity, the security posture overall, and also to help them to achieve compliance with the baselines that they would like to implement within the organization.
Great, thanks, Ron. And we have a question from Daniel from the tech community, which is, I think, super critical. You know, we talked about how the vulnerability management, the world of exposure management was born from the problem with vulnerability, challenges with vulnerability management, where the world is more than just vulnerabilities. We have many different exposures. So the question is the external attack surface management, EASM, from Azure also connected to exposure management in our solution? Gilad?
Yeah, so we are in the process of onboarding Azure's Defender External Attack Surface Management, EASM solution to exposure management. Specifically, naturally, as with everything that we do, we first want to onboard it into the exposure graph in order to enable us to then surface all of these findings and connect them to the graph in the way that Tomer demoed earlier. So this is currently in the works. Obviously, as with everything that we do, we wouldn't necessarily stop with Azure's EASM solution. If I refer back to the third-party connectors that we discussed earlier, we'll obviously also expand this to other tools later on, but naturally, Azure's EASM solution will be first.
Yeah, I'll just want to extend it a bit. Within Unified Exposure Insights, we do have a security initiative which is called External Attack Surface Management. This initiative gives you a glimpse of information that Microsoft External Attack Surface Management, information that they hold about various organizations, about your organization, aggregated metrics that can help you to estimate what's going on in terms of your external attack surface and what EASM currently see. It also provides you, it's some kind of mini trial that you can just try and see if there is a valuable information there. And we can also help you to onboard the EASM trial subscription to extend this information. We do know that today this initiative is focused only for customers who do not have the subscription, but as Gilad said, we are working on embedding EASM data, deep EASM data into the graph to provide and surface insights, exposure insights that also have this external attack surface notion within the product. I would like to just add, I see here another question that I believe that it's connected to that, would be, let me find it again. This is a question from Paul. When trying to add a connector to EASM, a dialog shown that warrants, please note you can perform this action only once for now. So today, the interface allows you to select a vendor within within our EASM program, select a vendor, get all this aggregated data and see it. And today we do not support like removing or bringing another vendor or changing the configuration there. So this is a current limitation within the product, within this specific security program. This is a technical limitation, and obviously we will consider as part of the roadmap to extend the capabilities there.
Yeah, and I think external attack surface management is a crucial component of an exposure management program. You want to see from the inside, you want to see from the outside, you want to understand your compensating control. And it's really about bringing everything together and tying all together. This is exactly what initiative are for, to help you through that CTEM process of scoping a certain area that relates to a business project, and then discovering, prioritizing, validating, and mobilizing your organization, your people, or your technology to go and fix that. And this leads us to the next question around security initiative. Can we build our own and use those with exposure management? I think that's a great question, Ron.
So today, no, but we fully understand the need. Different organizations have their own security programs. They would like to manage their security programs with their scope, with their objective, with their prioritization method, right? We were talking about the CTEM model. The CTEM model is all about customization of your goals, customization of your programs to make sure that you achieve the specific goals that you are defining in your scope. So not today, but eventually we will have those capabilities to customize and create your own initiative, your own security programs, exactly as the framework states.
Yeah, and I think it's super, super critical. Imagine that you have your own business objective that you want to achieve, and naturally the catalog that we're providing out of the box will not answer all of your needs at day one. And this is why we need to understand and acknowledge that every business operates differently, has its own constraint and own risk appetite. And this is why customization is at the heart of what we're doing, and allowing you to build those metrics and initiative is definitely something we're looking into and we're hearing from a lot of customers. So that's a great question. So going back to connectors, there's a question from Yusuf around SAP environments or other third-party platform, whether we're planning to connect. Gilad?
So as I mentioned earlier, we're not going to get into specifics in terms of the specific products that we intend to connect with, but naturally this specific domain is something that we are looking into. And again, I'd like to call out the fact that within the data connectors page in the security exposure management section of the portal, we have a connector request tool that enables you to provide details about connectors that you're interested in terms of the tools that you're using in your organization and you feel could create or generate value for you if they would be part of the exposure management solution that we are building. So I encourage you to use that form, specifically in respect to these connectors that were mentioned by Yusuf or to others. And we'll be happy to take it from there, reach out to you, continue discussing your needs around connectors.
And I would like to add something on top of that. It is important to state that there is a use case of SaaS security posture management, right? Protecting your SaaS applications. There is the use case of bringing data from SaaS applications to extend your exposure graph to better understand context and attack paths, etc. But there is another use case of assessing how protected your SaaS application is. And here it's important to say that Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps connectors is something that are flowing inside our platform seamlessly. It means that if you have Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps and you're making assessments of third-party SaaS applications, you will see different recommendations and different security context related to those apps just by us getting this context from Microsoft Defender for Cloud Applications. This SaaS security posture management context is flowing into Microsoft Security Exposure Management.
Yep, and I think data is critical eventually, but data and the connectors, you mean to an end. And one of the ends, one of the capability that we discussed was the attack path analysis. And there is a question from Axe Gilad around whether you can shed some light around how the analysis works, how the attack path analysis actually works under the hood.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a large research team who are continuously working on adding additional data to the exposure graph. And one of the primary drivers for adding data is the ability to help us leverage this information in order to identify weaknesses that can enable an attacker to move from point A to point B in the organization. So it's a continuous process. We enrich the exposure graph either by bringing in new data from existing tools, whether it's first party or third party, or alternatively by leveraging the third party connectors that we're building, and then creating logic internally that enables us to identify the ability to leverage weaknesses or certain configuration states in order to do lateral movement in the organization. We create a continuous assessment on top of the graph that is continuously running, analyzing the changing environment and identifying new paths that have been discovered. I'd like to again reiterate the fact that we are not only looking at entry points, then lateral movement to any random target. We are also providing the ability to focus on targets that are potentially high value targets business-wise, which is another capability that we are continuously enriching. So we're continuously improving our ability to identify entry points to the organization. We're identifying, enabling us to help you better understand the ability to do lateral movement. And we're also continuously adding classifications and logic that enable you to identify potential targets that are of high value to you. And everything is continuously running a few times a day to understand whether any changes in your environment have introduced new attack paths or have potentially resolved existing attack paths. One last thing that I will mention is that our attack path management experience provides you the ability to differentiate between existing attack paths, newly discovered attack paths, and also attack paths that used to exist but have been mitigated and are no longer posing a threat or risk to the organization.
Thanks, Gilad. So I think, attack path analysis is the way to go to prioritize risk, but naturally a lot of customers will have kind of a maturity curve, how they will get into the exposure management world, how they can kind of expand beyond vulnerability management. And a question, an open question to Gilad and Ron. Ron, perhaps let's start with you. Perhaps you can provide us some tips around how to get started with Microsoft Security Exposure Management. What do I need to do? I just saw that in Defender Portal popping up. Where do I start?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there are multiple ways that you can manage your Microsoft Security your exposure management. You can do it proactively. You can do it reactively. We encourage you to start with the platform with a reactive goal or the proactive goal. So just by looking on the overview page, you can see the different security initiatives. You can see different security programs and just find one that you relate with. It could be ransomware protection. It could be endpoint security. It could be identity security. You can start with that and dive deeper to see how we analyze different measurements, how do we analyze different data that we see, and you can select area for improvement. This is one method for trying and using the product for the first time. Just identify area of focus and see, are there any actions that your organization can take to do some improvement? You can set goals, right? You can see if my ransomware score right now is 60%, I can set a goal within the initiative to say, my goal is to be 80%. And we'll track it. We'll track your progress towards this goal. This is one way you can start. Gilad, maybe you can share some thoughts about how we can start with analyzing attack path and attack surface graph.
Yes, definitely. So I would like to first say that the notion of attack paths and various new capabilities that we're introducing to some organizations or security teams may be relatively new. So the first step I would take, I strongly encourage everyone here on this call to go into the attack path management page, the area in the portal, and familiarize yourself with the concept. Try to understand what an attack path means, what the existing attack paths, the prevalent attack paths that are currently exist in your environment are. This could give you a good idea of maybe a fundamental flaw in the way that you're configuring some of your assets or your workloads. I also encourage you to leverage the map visualization and the graph visualization that we saw earlier. We know already from a lot of customers that it helps them. Ron just mentioned a top-down, high-level proactive approach of running a security program through initiatives and so on. But we also know that the map visualization is really helping a lot of our customers to understand the environment of specific assets they are currently looking into. It can be assets that are top of mind for them because even potentially maybe an alert from another tool has surfaced something suspicious in relation to this asset, and you may want to understand what is the surrounding environment for this asset. The map visualization is great tool for that. We already know for some of our customers that are saying users, the security teams, who are saying that this is the first thing they do in the morning. They look at assets that are currently top of interest for them, and the first thing they do is they open the map, they search. There's a search bar there that you can search for a specific asset, and they first familiarize with themselves with the asset itself and its surroundings, and this gives them a lot of context to continue exploring this asset for whatever reason they have. So I encourage you to look into the map visualization and familiarize yourself with that. We have a lot of goodness still coming to that map as well, a lot of capabilities that will be added in the upcoming months around the choke points and asset exposure and ability to actually see attack paths on the map and so on and so forth. The last tool that I will mention is something that you'd want to familiarize yourself with. It's an advanced capability, but super important if you do want to dive further into the exposure graph. And this is the fact that the exposure graph is exposed in your advanced hunting environment. There are two new schemas or tables that expose all the underlying data that we have in the graph, everything that feeds and supercharges the entire solution. There are new KQL operators that you may want to familiarize yourself with that enable you to ask graph questions in KQL. Show me all paths of up to 2 steps from an entity of type X to an entity of type Y that maybe has sensitivity on it. If you familiarize yourself with advanced hunting and the new schemas that we expose there, I think it can also take you a great length into upgrading your exposure management program in your company.
Yeah, that's great. And thanks, Gilad and Ron. And I think I'll add to that eventually there's many ways to get inside exposure management, which is kind of the evolution of vulnerability management, starting with bringing more tool to your arsenal, vulnerability prioritization, threat intelligence, start leveraging attack path analysis, as Gilad mentioned, connecting that to our automated workflow that will bring those findings and mobilize them. And as we progress and as we release more and more releases across Microsoft Exposure Management, we're committed to help you drive your CTEM project and your CTEM program and add more and more capability to really help you facilitate in a single place, where you have a project, you can come, see all the problems, bring all the people, get the evidence to mobilize and actually reduce true risk on true exposure. So I think there's many ways to get into that, and we're always looking to help and look out for new documentation and of course the blogs that we're going to launch that will help you through that kind of process and how to get started. Another question came here, Gilad, around the graph and what is the exposure graph latency? I'm connecting to all of these tools. Perhaps you can shed some lights.
So there's different latency. There's a different latency for different types of tools or workloads. So there's no one answer. At most, the latency can be a 24-hour latency. but for many of the tools and the types of data that we ingest, it's a matter of hours or even less. Naturally, as the solution matures, as we continue working on it, we are aiming to get as close, wherever possible, to near real time, at least in the things that matter. But currently, it differs greatly between different products and workloads that we're ingesting.
That's awesome. Thanks, Gilad. And I think we had a lot of great questions today around exposure management. And this is the first version. We're super excited about what we released. We're getting great feedback from you and great positive kind of comments and feature release. And thank you so much for joining us at the Microsoft Secure Tech Accelerators. All of today's sessions will be available on demand, and you can continue to post questions through Friday, April 5th. And we look forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you very much, Ron. Thank you very much, Gilad, for your time today, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.